Okay, those 9 key words that effectively manage our classrooms. Give you 30 seconds more, and then we'll just put some of these words up on the whiteboard. So what are some of the words you're thinking of? Respect. Love. Have that very caring environment. Yes. Good planning. Okay. Tools, using those tools, absolutely. One more? Different strategies. Discipline, another one. Discipline and responsibilities. Consistency, empathy, take 2 more. Student agency, last one, yes. Enthusiasm. Would we see these keywords in action in your classroom? Excellent. This is some really good thinking this morning, so really keep these in mind when we unpack our look at classroom management for learning today. Why is it effective to have good classroom management? Yes, it's going to invite our students to learn. We have big class sizes, 20, 25, 28 children. Good effective classroom management will invite those students to learn. It's increasing positive behavior. Not only is it inclusive of your classroom, but it's just bringing that stronger culture to your school. And it's giving the students skills to be more successful when they leave school and outside of the classroom setting. We're adults, we work in a school. Your directors, heads of schools, principals probably have some rules that you have to follow. And if things don't follow that way, there could be some consequences. That's what the school prepares us for. That's why we need that effective classroom management in our classrooms. So let's just look at these quickly individually. The first one was inviting our students to learn. What does that look like? How we interact orally, creating that welcoming environment. Acknowledging their questions, acknowledging their input. Personalizing the behaviors and inviting them up. Way we interact to encourage them. A quick thumbs up, thumbs down, high five for understanding. Having that creative, positive climate, inviting them to be engaged with you as a learner. It's what your classroom also looks like will have an impact on your effective classroom management strategies. Students are very, very excited when they see their work and work of their friends on display in your classroom, out in the hallway, and around the school. If you have the space to create centers for learning, maybe one area is your math area in the classroom, a science corner, an investigation station, your literacy, your reading library in the classroom, creating those effective areas students can go to, all will invite them to learn. And letting them know that it's okay to make that mistake, to experiment, to be playful in the classroom. Okay? So those are factors that will invite students to participate in your learning environment. Positive student behavior. Personalizing it, addressing them by name. Something sometimes we forget that we expect the children to do, but sometimes we don't do it ourselves. Those basic manners, the respect we're looking for, the please and thank you. When you model it as a teacher, it's going to happen in your classroom, and that will really increase student behavior. How you present yourself that morning will set the tone for the day. This is your language and your body language as well. And then we got our love coming in. Having those warm, positive interaction with children at all age, from our little ones who are 3 years old up to our students in the high school. They still need that positive interaction with us. But we are the authority figure. We're not there to be their best friend. So just having that balance with our student interaction. Preparing them to thrive in our society, our ever-changing society. And just the bottom part, I put in purple, is remembering, yes, we're giving them these life learning skills. However, we still do our teaching and learning, and we're still covering our subject content. So it's bringing in the content, but bringing in these life skills of responsibility, cooperation, courage, and self-esteem. It will really help our students when they're outside the classroom. I really just want us to look quickly and closely at responsibility, cooperation, courage, and self-esteem. Having them understand that they are part of the classroom discipline system, how that classroom is managed. Like a little democracy. They have a voice, they have input, they can ask questions. So whatever rules or agreements you begin at the beginning of the year, they're collaborative. Everyone's had some input. That will give them ownership and responsibility. Creating that environment with those rules of responsibilities, it will bring an element of cooperation. How? The students are going to work together to make sure they're all abiding by those rules or agreements you've set up. Because there may be linked to those rules some kind of a consequence that you might have created, so they're going to support each other to be successful. Giving them all courage, even our shy, withdrawn child. Or the students we may have in our class that have those special learning needs that are a little slower than everyone else. Creating that positive classroom environment is going to give them that courage. So they're going to feel very much belonging to that environment. And that's quickly linked to their self-esteem. And all studies show if they have a very positive self-esteem in your classroom, in your learning environment, what is going to happen? Their learning is going to go up. So you're going to have a very highly abled class. What does it look like? We have 3 areas that we're going to explore, and I'm going to be really brave and try something with such a large group. There's some markers on the posters, or you can just take your pen. Let's do a little activity. I have in the corner the productive environment. Over here, cooperative, respectful, and on-task student. And what, swap them. The productive environment is there, and the positive classroom atmosphere is over there. Just get up and write your thoughts of what would this look like. What would a productive environment look like in a classroom? If someone has your idea, don't write it again. Just put a check mark so then we can see what the frequency of how important we're valuing that. So let's just take a few minutes, walk around the 3 posters. We'll do it graffiti style. Even if you lean over someone just to get your marks in, you don't need to have it nicely written wherever you can. There's some markers, there's some pens. Just write your ideas of what these 3 things look like in your effective classroom. Yeah, we'll take a few minutes now and run to the posters. Here's a marker I'll just put on the floor here. Excuse me. Here's a marker if we need it. Okay, let's look at the productive environment. Some of our key words we have here: well-structured, strategies, good inquiry, student-centered, free spaces, a lot of things to do, to be involved in, group work, engagement, ownership, responsibility, creativity, innovations. That's creating your positive environment. We're going to look at it in 2 ways. Seating and organization, thank you, is looking at all your physical areas that you've mentioned here. I really like these free spaces to think, the way you have organized your centers, that creativity. When I was in the classroom, I would change my seating plan every week. The students would come in on Monday never knowing where they were going to be seated. So they really interacted so well with everyone in that classroom. And there were times I let them choose their own seating arrangements, knowing, okay, girls, I know you're really good friends. Is it a good choice to sit together this week? It's your responsibility, giving those students that ownership. So, and the way you organize your room with those learning centers around, displaying their work, will create that environment. Then it's your planning and your engaging. You're probably thinking, well, how does the planning affect a positive environment? It will affect the environment because you're going to come in prepared. The materials will be ready. We've mentioned resources will be ready and available. You might be over-planned. So those children that rush through the activities, there's always something else for them to do. That's very important. And again, making sure everything is engaging. Having them construct their own meaning, having that constructivist, inquiry-based classroom as much as you can. So that's for our positive, productive environment. Some of us went through this system. Whose brain is engaged? This one, the teacher. Who's doing the learning? The teacher. We've gone to school. We know it. We don't need to learn it again. Let's mix it up. How can we change this to be a productive environment? Maybe those arrows would go the other way, igniting their brain. Anything else? The arrows going both ways? Could you have this? Absolutely. When I visit classrooms and I tour schools, these are the best classrooms I see. Where's the teacher here? Exactly. We don't know which one because there's so much interaction. There's groups, there's individuals, there's pairs. The best productive environment classroom I go into is when I walk in and I can't see where the teacher is. Not that she's down the hall in the teacher's room having a coffee, but because she's down interacting. She's at one of the learning centers. She's on the carpet. Let's look at our cooperative student. We have our interaction, engaged, hands-on. Teacher modeling behavior. Well done, whoever wrote that. We have some agreements. Active classroom displays. This contributes to our positive environment when your classroom displays are interactive to support the learning. Good communication, good working in groups. The busy student. Let's look at the busy student. Is a busy student always engaged? Is a busy student always learning? That's something for us to be aware of as the leader in the classroom. Even though they might look busy, what are they really writing about? Maybe they're just drawing a picture. Okay? That's how that looks like. Of course, cooperation, following our class guidelines, working together. That's going to show us our cooperative classroom. If you come back to what we had in our productive environment with that planning, you will have student engagement, classroom management will just fall into place for you. And this goes outside of your classroom. When I arrived at the school I'm working at now, there was a big concern about behavioral issues on the playground. And you know what the problem was? We had no choice. What were the kids engaging in on the playground? Exactly, they decided to engage with each other in a non-positive way. Within a week, the teachers were amazed the turnaround on our playground because we brought in balls, hula hoops, skipping ropes, things where they could cooperate and be engaged in. So this even takes your environment outside of the classroom. And here's our positive classroom atmosphere. I've broken it down from environment, teacher, and child. Just some of your thoughts over here. Is the cooperation, group work, following the agreements, learning, engagement, that positive atmosphere, the love in the classroom, the empathy. Let's see if we find it in here. Focusing on the environment, going up to the teacher, going up to the child. Okay, we did have that word come up when we did our diamond ranking. What makes effective classroom management? Discipline with dignity. What would be our thinking with that? Exactly. It's all of these other factors bringing it into our discipline measures. So we're just going to unpack this for a moment. And this is what happens when we need to have discipline. It's a word I don't like using all the time, but it's linked with our classroom management because the strategies are there, but sometimes you're going to have to discipline. So let's look at it. It's an action when the classroom management strategies are not working. It's our social expectations inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And at the end of the day, you have two goals as a teacher responsible for your classroom: creating that safe environment where they're physically safe, as well as the teaching and learning. At the end of the day, you're responsible for those two things. So it's looking at our discipline strategies, and you have to have a strategy. Going back to the very first question I asked you when you started the room, what did new teachers struggle with? What was the area they wanted that support on? And it was classroom management. And I always advise new teachers, go into the classroom. First impression is important. Be firm and fair. Then, once you gather and gain that respect, the love, the empathy comes naturally. But if I'm your teacher and I go in and I want to be your best friend today, what's happening? I'm losing my position of authority. It will come in time, but not right away. So we have to be careful with that. And it takes time, as you know, to develop your classroom management style. This word came up on our board, consistency. As you know, children understand the concept of fairness very well. And they're smart and they're observant. And they will see in a class of 25 children, the teacher spoke to Ahmed because he did this, but not Mohammed. And they'll be on you. Okay, diminishing again your authority. So that consistency, is it exhausting? Absolutely right. Sometimes you'll crawl out of your classroom, but you'll have run an effective classroom. Again, avoiding those surprises, effective planning will lead to good classroom management. So if you're going to be away, or the routine is going to change in the day, let them know. Let them know that physical education was canceled today, but don't be upset because we're going to have 2 classes of it tomorrow, just so they see, okay, the fairness. Also reducing surprises to parents and students and administrators. Never mentioning any issues you have in class until report card season or parent-teacher conferences. Nothing is worse to say, why didn't you tell me this 3 months ago? Okay, so being on the ball with that. And develop a strategy with your administration to make sure it's aligned with any behavioral policies you may have at the school or discipline procedures you may have at the school. So you're all being aligned, and that consistency is school-wide. So we have types of discipline strategies. We're going to follow the DENSCOM model. Domination strategies, classroom management strategies, cooperation strategies, strategic withdrawal. I'm going to give you choice. I have some envelopes here with those strategies, those 4 strategies in here labeled, and then many, many points, where I was going to have you take the strategy and classify the points for which they fall under. However, we're a large group. Do you think we could do it? Or should I just show you the answer? Who wants to try the activity? Who wants the answer? Who wants to try the activity? Keep your hands up so I can have a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have about 25. We're nearly the 50% mark. Oh, it's a tough one. Exactly. I have to bring into democracy into the thing. Let's give it a go. Why not, right? So for those who voted against us, just join in. Be that engaged student. Follow our essential agreements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why don't we just do, if you can just come up, stand around one table, and we'll just go by rows. This group, this group, this group. There we go. So maybe choose a table, clear it off a bit, spread everything out. Now again, you'll see the titles and many strips of paper, just to have a little fun matching exercise. Okay, are we ready to see the answers? Thank you for participating in that big group. It was great. So let's look at our domination strategies. Do you want to just get him again? It always freezes, the little man in the cage.
Where?
The IT man?
Yes.
It always freezes. Sorry. Just once I finish all 4, then you can go around and just pick them up. Let him finish that for me. Technology is not always our friend. Perfect. There we are. There's our domination strategies. We had 3. Emphasizing the power over the students, declarative decision making, and the teacher coming across as the boss, being the one in charge. Do we have some groups 100% correct? Yes? Okay, well done. Okay. Our classroom management strategies could have been a little tricky to sort out. Looking at rationale over authority, the purpose of the classroom, the purpose of the learning. It's that cooperation of sharing the responsibility, giving students the responsibility. One of our key words that came up when we looked at that. So this has a responsibility element of giving some of the responsibility to the student. Anyone get all 4 of these correct? No? A few mistakes? That's okay. This was a tricky one. One extra, all 4 plus 1. Okay, brilliant. Our cooperation strategies, there were 3. Having those essential agreements or those collaborative rules we spoke about earlier. That is their engagement with cooperation strategies to classroom management. What do you notice about point 3? Each one has a statement. What do you think of the teacher's statements with the cooperation strategies? It's engaging the students. It's not telling them to be quiet. It's engaging them in helping me keep down the noise. So giving that collaborative responsibility that we're all going to do this together. It's not your fault, it's not mine. We're going to do it together. Anyone get all of cooperation strategies down? And finally, our strategic withdrawal. Now, this was another difficult one to sort out. Do we have a good understanding of strategic withdrawal? What does this strategy really mean? Not that he totally lost control. It's isolating it, meaning I'm not going to waste time in class having an argument. I'm not going to argue with the students. But also, I have a curriculum to teach. I have a lesson. Remember going back to the safety of the environment and teaching and learning? That you're not going to stop the class for every rule that's broken. So for example, these two are over here talking. I'm not going to make an issue of it. Strategic withdrawal, I'm going to acknowledge it, but just keep the flow of the lesson going. So you're not dealing with every issue largely, just a small tap, acknowledge, and just move on. Okay? So what are some steps we can look at in developing our discipline plan? Determine your discipline strategy. What is going to be your dominant strategy? What combination of the 4 domains that I showed you are you going to adopt, and what are you going to create? What is going to be your identity for classroom discipline? Also, the expectations made collaboratively with the students. What are those going to be? How is this classroom going to function? With that, if you have expectations, what are you going to have that goes with it, that the children are very aware of? Those consequences, if we don't follow the agreements, what's going to happen? Are we going to have maybe a class meeting about it? Is it serious enough that we have to send a letter or a phone call home? Do you have to go to the director? Whatever suits your need and is aligned with your school's behavioral expectations. Also acknowledging the positive behavior. And that can look at many different forms depending on the curriculum framework you have at your school, your behavioral policy. How are you going to acknowledge the good behavior? sharing your plan with the students, with the administrations, and really important to share it with the parents. At that meet the teacher afternoon you might have, or that introduction letter you sent home saying, I'd like to introduce myself. These are our behavioral expectations in my classroom. These are the procedures I follow. So if that child comes home with the letter from the teacher, no surprise, we have an understanding of why, because it's following your behavioral plan for your classroom. And again, implement it consistently and fairly. Let's have a look at a few of these strategies in action. Okay, sorry, they're all going to be in, most of them are in French because I work in a French school. Okay, so here we have our responsibility circle. All the students' names are on the outside, and on the inside they share the cards and they determine who's going to be in charge of the line, the calendar, the brushes, and whatnot. Those basic routines. And they vary. And how it works is the line leader, the one on the bottom, is the one who helps determine the cycle of the shared responsibilities. Again, bringing that democracy into the classroom of how they're going to sort out their cycle of responsibilities. We have a little continuum to modify, to look at and reflect at the end of a lesson or the end of the day, our behavior, and you can tell by the faces. As a class today, how were we? I think we really were good, so we're ça va. Okay? But how were we in math? We did have some problems today, remember? Maybe we were grave. So these indicators, and again, I come from an elementary background, are visual reminders, but they also want to please you and please themselves, so they're going to strive for the more positive feedback. Again, a quick, simple visual to have in your class to help with these procedures. Respect. A key word. This is the only discipline behavior we have at the school is respect. We speak about it at assemblies. It's in our classrooms. When students are told, oh, you didn't follow the agreements, I think it's time to go see Mr. Arbour, all they say is, he's going to say the R word. He's going to talk about the R word. And that's respect. And we like to have these strategies in our classroom of what does respect look like for them, but also what does it sound like. So that is developed with them so they have ownership of it and they have a better understanding. Again, looking at circle time, our routine, what is our expectation? For free time, what is our expectation? You notice we cross out the word no. We're trying to make everything more on the positive so it doesn't look negative of do not, no, okay? How is this developed? Keywords we want. The respect, we make a web. Being responsible, what does that look like? Again, crossing out anything that's going to cause a negative rule. and just ways we display everything around the room so they're very visible for the learner, and it's a quick reference point for you as the teacher. And it helps with that level of consistency that we're striving for. A comparison chart that if we're going to go to those learning centers we spoke about in your classroom, what's going to make a terrific center if we follow these guidelines? What's going to happen in the center if we don't follow them? It's too noisy, there's not sharing. So again, with the young learners, they visually see the two differences. And they're like, okay, we don't want to go on that chart because we do want to participate and be engaged in the center. The emphasis of literature in the classroom, storybooks, picture books, with the young ones and even with the older children. We read these kind of stories to our middle school students. They respond to them because it comes with a message. So we're having some issues in the classroom. See with your librarians of what literature is available. Okay? My example today is Howard B. Wigglebottom. Learns to listen. Would you like to end the day with a story? Should we hear a little story? Meet Howard B. Wigglebottom. Howard is always in trouble at school because, well, Howard just doesn't listen. During story time, instead of quietly listening, Howard bounces around the room. Howard B. Wigglebottom, please sit down, be quiet and listen. But Howard doesn't listen. Howard B. Wigglebottom, you're bouncing too close to the fan. But Howard doesn't listen. Hey Howard, watch your step. At lunchtime, his friends try to warn him, but Howard doesn't listen. After lunch, Howard's friends tries to tell him something important, but Howard doesn't listen. Keep your eyes on the ball, Howard. On the playground, Howard's teammates try to help him, but Howard doesn't listen. In the art room, the teacher reminds the class, kids, try to keep the paint on your paper, but Howard doesn't listen. So the teacher asks him to take a time out. He feels sad. Howard does not like being alone and in trouble. He thinks and thinks about his day. Howard makes up his mind. From that moment on, he will try hard to be the best listener he can be. The next day, Howard does listen during story time. He waits for his turn to talk and then asks a question about the story. Howard gets a big star because Howard is really listening. While walking home, Howard uses both his eyes and ears to help stay safe. Howard is really listening. Please hang up your backpack and clean up your room now. When Howard gets home, he listens to his mother. Howard is really listening. So Howard gets extra time to play and have fun. Howard B. Wigglebottom is really listening. Almost all of the time. There's just a thank you screen. Any questions, any points you need for clarification? Okay, great. I hope you picked up some strategies. Could I just have you pick up the envelopes? And we'll see you around and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for today. Have a great one.